Like if you're having some sort of debate over, I don't know, like group level versus individual level selection in evolution. That's like, oh, well, those are two different competing hypotheses with two different amounts of evidence to contribute to them. And you can say, oh, well, here's what I think about this, and here's what I think about this. But if you think the Earth is flat or 6,000 years old, I don't want to have a reasonable conversation with you. I want to go, you are fucking retarded.
Yeah.
Your brain is deficient. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the way I tried to explain this is, you know, there are obviously, and it's not, to me, it's not the same as calling somebody stupid, and that's why I feel like I have to explain it, is because there are, like, you know, cars that are clearly better than other cars. They have, you know, for whatever reason, you could say they have more horsepower, whatever. But if you buy, you know, if you buy just a regular old car and it works the way it's supposed to, it doesn't matter whether or not it's really great. It just is adequate. That's it. But it works correctly. It works the way it's supposed to do. It gets the performance it's made to have. It's efficient. It's normal. But if it's fucking up constantly, springs shooting out, it's deficient. It doesn't. It's so like I hate that when people say, "Oh, you're just that's not cool, man. You're just saying he's an idiot." You know, or people that are very modest about their intelligence are like, "Well, I can't help it if I'm not as smart as you." When they're not, well, that's a false modesty that I just mimicked there. But it's like, I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying you have a brain. It's supposed to work one way, and you either are saying, no, I'm not gonna let it work that way, or you're just fucked. Like you just are. I don't know why I'm getting that serious, but people take it seriously when I tell someone else that their brain is deficient. They have an improperly functioning brain.
If you're teachable, that's one thing. But if somebody tells you things, they make a clear demonstration as to why it's right, and then you still like think the Earth is flat, fuck you.
Right.
Like, you're just like, yeah. Go ahead and believe that, stupid. Like, I'll say that. Like, and the word stupid can be a literal like term, or it can be just common usage where it's just, I want to say something to you that will bother you. And you're not literally technically stupid, perhaps, but fuck you, stupid. Like, yeah. And I think that sort of thing, that sort of language is falling by the wayside a little more than I like.
I agree. Well, and I try to emphasize too, there's a difference between being stupid and being ignorant.
Yes.
And that one is huge, and that gets abused sometimes, I think.
Yeah. I mean, when you want to be really accurate, then you use the right label. But like, I see comedians calling each other stupid all the time because they actually love each other. Yeah. And they're just like, yeah, nice one, stupid. Like, but they actually are friends. And it's the opposite of what they actually think and what actually makes sense.
That's true.
Which is what absurdity is, and which is a big part of comedy and common everyday life. Yeah. So.
Well, and this, I guess you would call it this, that, when we started off talking about just that idea of redefining terms, it's kind of a variant. I don't know if you necessarily have to call it a variant, but it's the no true Scotsman thing. Mm-hmm. That's what it always reminds me of. Like when you get debates, I hate it when people start getting into debates with you when you talk about religion, about like the evil atheists that have ever existed. And you then I always say, well, there's totally been people that believed in Jesus and were evil or did evil things. They're like, oh, well, they weren't real Christians. Right. And it's like, no true Scotsman. And the thing is, I've told people, I was like, you're no true Scotsman. And they go, but no, that really is the definition. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. You're actually wrong.
You're redefining the terms.
Yeah.
And the no true Scotsman thing is one of the logical fallacies. So basically, it's my uncle is Scottish and doesn't like haggis. Let's see if I got this right. My uncle is Scottish and doesn't like haggis. No, my uncle is Scottish and likes haggis. And then another guy goes, well, my uncle's Scottish and he doesn't like haggis. Yeah. And then the first guy goes, well, true Scotsmen like haggis. Something like that. Mm-hmm. All true Scotsmen like haggis. So you're just redefining what a Scotsman is to fit the thing you already think ahead of time. Yeah. It's just another bullshit way of fucking with the process of premise, logic, conclusion. Those three simple things that can muck you up in so many complicated ways.
Well, we get this a lot nowadays in our country with people talking about, well, about real Americans and people that really know what's good for America. People that actually care about the country. True patriots. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a bullshit redefining of the terms to make anybody who disagrees with what you think into the bad guy. This is, I guess it's sort of semi-officially like National Bully Month, October.
Really?
I guess, yeah, that's what I've heard. What the fuck ever.
So it's open season. You can just start bullying like crazy.
That's how I did it. Yeah, that's what I assumed it was.
Well, I don't feel so bad about pushing over that woman at the grocery store this morning.
I mean, I didn't want to start bullying people, but I feel almost like it's my duty now. Yeah. So it's National Bullying Month. I heard that from who knows in the future whether this will mean anything to anybody, but in the news there was this fat news lady who got a letter saying she was fat by a viewer, and it was a bad role model for children. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't realize what you were talking about when we were going over this earlier. I thought you were talking about. You remember the thing with the lady who was like a bus attendant?
She was a monitor, yeah.
Bus monitor, yeah.
Yeah, she got teased by kids, but this was like a letter written by an adult.
Yeah, I didn't hear this one.
Yeah, so basically she's a fat news lady, and by the way, I love bigger girls, so don't take offense for realsies out there, because I think you are sexy. But also, I think that people shouldn't freak the fuck out over everything so much, and that's what I have a problem with the fat news lady, is she did a piece on her show reacting to this letter, and it was well written and clearly sent in by somebody who didn't want to insult her, and it was a dickish thing to do. I don't know why that was the point of his letter. It was like, you're overweight and obese, and you shouldn't be a role model in the public eye. That's a weird fucking creepy letter to write in from somebody who doesn't have enough to do or something. But she reacted too strongly. That's all I'm gonna say. That guy was a dick who wrote that letter, and then she was being too overreactionary.
Yeah.
And she called it bullying. It's not fucking bullying. It's writing a shitty letter. Bullying is getting punched all the time when you're in school, which happened to me a lot. And by people who are more numerous and bigger and stronger than you are. Mm-hmm. Or bullying is when, for years, somebody just teases you relentlessly till you're just crushed inside.
Right.
Not this mild...
Somebody sends you a shitty letter.
Yeah, a shitty letter one time anonymously, and it's meaningless. And she even said, this is bullying. And then she said... your words mean nothing to me, which seems contradictory to me. I think they mean a great deal to her. And if your words mean nothing to me, then it's not bullying.
Right.
You can't have it both ways. And let's go one step further and say that there are many varying degrees of bullying. And we could go ahead and call this bullying. I think it's dishonest to have light bullying, medium bullying, and heavy bullying, and then just refer to everything as bullying, because what you're doing is a dirty trick of getting people to think light bullying is hardcore bullying.
Right.
And it's sort of a deceptive tactic. And I think it's shitty, and ultimately it makes everything meaningless. So...
Well, and sort of like you were alluding to, the whole thing ends up being fucking retarded, because not only is she going on and talking about, getting bullied and failing to make all these distinctions and making things to seem like something they're not, but it's also but the problem is that guy's a douchebag too. But, if we call him a douchebag, that's like that doesn't necessarily mean we're saying yes, he is a bully. He's just the guy who wrote the letter is just an asshole. Like,
yeah, if she had said that, if she had left the word bully out, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Like, to me, here's how I would have liked to address it if it were me. I would have brought up the fact that there is scientific evidence that suggests that people that are overweight or obese can be perfectly healthy, and there are people that are normal weight that can be very unhealthy.
I would have brought up the fact that the whole role model thing, I think, is largely horseshit.
Oh, I agree with that as well.
Like, it's right up there with the violent video games or porn causing problems.
That may be. I'll inject. I'll be a little bit charitable on this one though. I've always had a very hard time, like, with the idea of role models in general. Mm-hmm. So I will be willing to admit for myself that I probably maybe skew one direction on that, because I even remember when I was a kid and people would say, "Oh, who are your role models? Who are your heroes?" And I don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Even if you're unawares, you could sort of assign the term role model to people in the media, whether you declare them your role model or not.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm only judging this because I'd like to see some evidence that role models have a big impact. Mm-hmm. And people have made...
I don't think they do.
Yeah, I don't think they do either. That's why I think it's horseshit.
Yeah, I thought there was evidence, especially for kids, to suggest that, like, especially once they hit puberty, the peer group mattered, like, had much more of an impact than anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then that's patent horseshit. Like,
people claim that role models matter, and that's an assertion that needs to have some evidence behind it.
Right.
Much like when people said violent video games make kids more violent, and the evidence came back the other way. And like when they said porn would increase the amount of rapes and etc., bad things like that, and the opposite came back in the evidence. And that's the problem with just believing shit that people say. You have to have some backup to it, or and this is the thing too, is the whole role model thing sounds like common sense. Like, yeah, I guess I could see how, maybe like, role models influence people to be like good or bad. And that sounds plausible, but at the end of the day, we gotta have some evidence, or else you're just saying shit, just making noises come out of your head hole.
Yeah. Well, this woman, this TV anchor, it sounds like with the bullying situation is a good opportunity for us to talk about it, because we're not siding with either of them. They both fucked up.
Yeah, they both fucked up.
And that makes us bad guys.
Yeah, fine. That's what we are.
As per usual. But I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, I guess I was thinking about it when we were talking about the bag of dirty tricks and redefining terms, is like the debates and all that just happened, or the debate that just happened last night, and all the politicking that's going on, is anytime complaining about any of that shit and not taking a side is just painful around people. It's just painful.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have to go down that road, but...
Well, since we're sort of in, like, current news items, did you want to go over any more that you had? Or...
Oh, I just thought of it because to me that's a total just a typical move that you see in things like debates and political commercials is redefining terms, or like you were mentioning earlier, burying a kernel of truth in a whole horseshit pie, and serving it up, and all these random just random numbers they throw out. This percentage in taxes, this percentage in cuts, this percentage in savings, this, they're going to gut this program and demolish this program and blah, blah, blah. I'm being very general, but it's just reflecting it, right now, a general disgust with all the horse shit.
Just, that's another thing, is throwing a bunch of statements and facts or pseudo facts out there, and it's like hard to go check them all.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're using vague terms, so it's not even factual. It's nothing. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just like, saying something like, we need to build ourselves up rather than keep ourselves down. We need to foster the American people rather than getting behind and living in the past.
We need to strengthen the middle class.
Yeah. Yeah, like what the fuck does that even mean, and how are you gonna do it? Like, who is the middle class?
We're gonna distribute fiber tablets so they have more robust colons.
Yeah, that's how you should interpret that.
Well, and also, I guess one of my big things I always say is when it comes to social issues, I just have, I'm always going to have the positions I have. Nobody's ever going to be able to appeal to me. I'm always going to be on the favor of a more libertarian social policy. Mm-hmm. But with like foreign policy and domestic policy, and the domestic policy is the debate they had last night, I just want to be an empiricist. Like when they say this does work or doesn't work, I just want to know whether or not it's true. Mm-hmm. And I want to vote for the guys that are right.
Science-based politics, I call it.
Well, it should be easily informed by economics, but it's not. Mm-hmm. And that's the annoying thing, is how that shit works.
Well, that's because, economics hasn't been tested as thoroughly as maybe we've had...
Well, you can't do proper experiments the way you can with chemistry, for example.
Yeah, like it's hard to do controls and like weed out variables. And also, like, we've only had so many countries on Earth, and I would like to have way, way more countries and try shit there and see what works and what doesn't. We've had a few experiments over time. The United States itself is an experiment.
Right.
The Soviet Union was an experiment. And I'd like to see that on a large scale, like with millions of countries. And there are only hundreds of countries. I don't even think... Are there now over 200 countries? Like somewhere in there.
There are 200 sovereign entities, at least, because I think there's 192 member states of the United Nations, but not everybody is in it.
Yeah. So it'd be neat to see millions of countries running things. Maybe like virtually someday when we get powerful enough, like like political simulators in a computer. That'd be an interesting thing to do.
This is a strong argument for terraforming Mars.
Yes. See what happens. But then, of course, it's another planet, and that's another variable, but...
How dare you?
But,
planetary discrimination and prejudice. Base treachery.
I love the idea of science-based politics, and that's sort of why I guess we're both sort of in the middle, and we have our thoughts, but they're all dictated by empiricism and the need for consistent methodology and not just common sense. Mm-hmm. And some evidence would be nice. That's sort of where the position we're in.
Right.
And a lot of people out there, both voting for and running for office or candidates, don't understand economics. They don't understand science or consistency. And they just go by their gut. People run for office on their gut, and then they vote for those guys on their gut. And there could be a book filled with economic facts that guarantee that if you do it this way, it'll work. And the voters won't know any of that shit, or they won't believe it.
Yeah.
And it's all... people run on religious platforms and patriotism platforms and all sorts of bullshitty things. And it would be great to just have somebody who actually... not just a president, but a Congress... and a Supreme Court who understands these processes and runs via them and not some whim or something.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and one thing you just reminded me of, because, mentioning like people that hide behind the Bible or the flag to run. Like, I was surprised last night how much they talked about education. I was like, is that a big issue right now? I didn't realize that. Like, I was surprised how much they're like, we need to strengthen our education system in the United States. And I'm like, why are we going there? Is that the only... I mean, I know it's always something people want to talk about, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, there's an old tactic of, think of the children. It's a subcategory of... one way of describing it is the fallacy of emotive words.
Okay.
Children is one of them. And another one is sort of what we touched on last week, which is the affect heuristic, where you get people to make judgments... or you rely on the fact that people will make judgments based on their emotions rather than logic. And children and education and all that stuff sort of all links together in that way to get people off guard a little bit and to get them to think the way you want to manipulate them, basically. But maybe there's some issue in education, too. I mean, it's not doing great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shitty problems with it. So maybe that's why they brought it up, but... I think mostly the popularity of the subject. Honestly.
I would say so.
So the thing that I was surprised by, I didn't know, was that it was the president's anniversary.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't know, that was an odd anniversary sort of date to debate somebody for the president. Whatever. That's
well, if he didn't, I mean, if he chose it, I'd be like, you bastard.
Anything to get out of like going to dinner.
Right, I know. Yeah. But, I mean, if he didn't, I don't know. I thought it was odd. Do you mean just an odd time of year to have an anniversary?
Well, no, I'm just thinking, like, what an odd situation you're in where it's your wedding anniversary, and instead of, working the old hot brown, you're there debating some douchebag.
I didn't realize that was your nickname for Michelle Obama.
Well, I wasn't thinking Michelle Obama, although it could have been. They could have been the president's cock. Who knows?
That makes me shiver.
That's right. Picture it. Think about it.
So, all right. Since we're keeping up a tradition from last week, what you're saying is after it went off of TV, that they went home to do a little driving in the Titanic.
Riding my coattails again. How dare you, sir?
I'll have to shake it up next week.
But I have to hand it to you. You did it. you nailed it. So
I just don't think that's a nice way to refer to your wife, but that's me. I don't know. I just had to use the euphemism.
What, the Titanic?
Yeah. Or your wife's ass specifically.
Oh. Well, better than like the iceberg or something.
Or the Hindenburg? I don't know.
The Hindenburg. I gotta write that down for a future episode.
I'll write about it down too. I already made one note so far.
So did you have any other wacky news items? Like you sort of mentioned you were thinking about some, but I don't know if you wanted to do
Yeah, I've got three things now. The first was because you were talking about October being some sort of bully month.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what other months do I know exist? And I think October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
All right.
But I think that we should make a push to establish some month, and I really don't care which month it is, just to be Breast Awareness Month.
Well, that's every month for me.
Yeah, but I'd like maybe May, when breasts start coming out.
Sure. Okay.
All right, I'm going to make a note. May is Breast Awareness Month. All right, made a note of that. Now, there are two things I mentioned it before. Well, maybe not on the show. That when I want dumb news, I go to the Huffington Post. And not because, if somebody's listening, they're like, yeah, because it's such a fucking retard liberal website. No, it does have liberal stuff on it. But it also just caters to the lowest common entertainment denominator.
Yeah.
Denominator. So one article I found was that there was a woman who had 4 pounds of her own hair removed from her stomach. And I didn't read the article very thoroughly, but apparently she just has a weird habit of chewing on her hair.
Yeah.
And she was starting to have some sort of GI discomfort, and they got down in there and they had a nice little piece of stomach-shaped massive hair. And I was like, that's another defective person.
That actually...
It doesn't have anything to do with being smart or stupid. It has everything to do with your brain doesn't work right.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. This is where I have mixed feelings about what it is to be a human being and what kind of control you have over your life.
Yeah.
There's mental illness and...
then there's eating hair.
Well, you have to... and there are these psychological things that you're driven to, like obsessions.
Right.
Compulsions, whatever. And if you really can't control yourself, it's kind of sad. I don't know where I come down on this, because on the one hand, I don't want to be one of those douches that just tells you to straighten up and fly right.
Well, yeah, something tells me if she ate 4 pounds of hair, that it wasn't just her being a pain in the ass.
Clearly, she's got some sort of issue where she doesn't make good decisions in that area. And you can't just tell somebody who makes bad decisions to just start making good ones.
Yeah, you can't just hit them with a newspaper and be like, knock it off, weirdo.
Yeah. Although, on the other hand, there is also such a thing as conditioning. Human beings are animals, and therefore they can be conditioned using conditioning. And one of the ways conditioning works is with a little tough love. And if you were to, maybe reinforce to that person that what they're doing is wrong or dumb or like weird or whatever, perhaps you could shame them into knocking that shit off.
Right.
Perhaps not. I don't know. But I think, at least in some circumstances, I know that I don't just think it, I know conditioning works in animals. And I would like to see if this would be one of those cases. This is one of those blanket rule areas again where there's a golden sweet spot, and it's neither the ultra liberal or the ultra conservative like position being correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like the real touchy feely types would be like, oh, you have to be like nice to everybody, man. Like don't ever like be mean and like shame people or whatever. And then the other side of that is the also wrong extreme of like everybody just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and like knock that shit off and fall in
quit
line.
acting out.
Yeah. Like it's somewhere in the middle where you have to have some sympathy. This is why it's called tough love and not just tough.
Right. Which is usually where it goes.
Right. So I would, if I was friends with this person, I might say like, what the fuck is wrong with you, you weirdo? And like they're chewing on their hair, and maybe they pull their hair out of their mouth. They may be compelled to put it back there again, but maybe you're creating. I know that new pathways can be created in people's brains. That happens, and then maybe this is one of the ways you can do that, or at least make a start of it.